Hi, this is Mike Pardy, Associate Programmer with SEEFest, the Southeast European Film Festival. I'm here with George Csicsery to talk about his work as a documentarian. He's with Zala Films. I'm sure he'll talk to us about that. George has been a writer and an independent filmmaker since 1968. He was born in Germany. In 1948, the son of Hungarian parents, he immigrated to the US in 1951. He's directed some 35 films, dramatic shorts, performance films, documentaries. Much of his work since the late 80s has been about mathematicians. In 2009, he received the Joint Policy Board for Mathematics Communications Award, that's quite a mouthful, for bringing mathematics to non-mathematical audiences. So, welcome, happy to meet you. I just want to say, I was reviewing, I did get to see your film on Maryam Mirzakhani, which was really, yeah, it was really good. We can talk about that. But your interests, although you focus on math and the sciences, your interests are broad. You cultural, historical ethnology, romance novelists, everything in between. So I'm curious how you journeyed from a BA in comparative literature to film production, which was your master's, and then obviously your life's work now.
Well, it never seemed to be include abrupt changes for me. Everything has been, as far as I could tell, coherent, although it may not seem that way. And by the way, thank you for doing this, and I want to thank the festival for doing this. It's one of the few festivals that doesn't terrify me. And it seems to be on a normal footing compared to what's going on in the world of film festivals these days. But your question is how these different aspects of my career fit together. And I was a student at UC Berkeley with a BA in comparative religions, which is really a grab-all field, probably related to what was called philology in the 19th and 18th century, perhaps. And it covers history, religion, literature, many of the arts, and also crosses the line into anthropology and sociology. So it's a large humanities field that allows you to dabble in all of those areas. So none of the directions I took was unnatural to me. It was an innovation. It was all an extension of that. I made a few films independently as an undergraduate with friends, and then when it came time to decide on what to do in 1969, I went to graduate school in cinema, and I'm still not sure whether that was a good idea. I got a master's degree in film and made a thesis dramatic film that when I watch today, I can mine it for period footage from 1970, but I don't understand the film at all. It was one of those things, It was.
So why are you not sure that it was a good idea to get a master's degree in film? You think
Because
you just gone right into it on your own, or did you find the?
I think the field experience at an early age is critical, and I think it's the most helpful thing. And I actually question many of the undergraduate film programs because students are being taught technical skills, but before they have a grasp of what content is important or interesting. And this is, I think it's worldwide. People are going to film school and they don't have the humanities or the science background to really judge which topics are worth working on.
Well, then, as you were starting out, did you have? It sounds like you were doing this at a pretty young age. You started your first films at 20. Did you have if not a clear idea, the germ of a focus on what you really was important to you as a filmmaker? I mean, obviously you weren't going into feature films. I mean, was your intent to be a documentarian? And
Yep.
then once you were a documentarian, were you thinking of a particular area of focus? I know you can always diverge from that, but I mean, were you thinking, I'd really like to get into social justice, or I'd really like to get into immigration, whatever it was?
But no, it wasn't at all. In fact, I didn't have a plan to be a documentarian. My interest was fiction film.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And drama. And I pursued that for a while, and fell into documentary. And gradually learned that documentary is the poor man's dramatic film. It's documentary subjects don't get paid most of the time, unless there's a network behind the project.
Yeah.
Then so it's a way of making films where you don't have to pay your actors, and the stories, and it's also a little bit lazy compared to drama, because your subjects are often giving you the story. They're writing the scripts for you. So there's some other benefits that are good for poor, lazy people.
Well, poor and lazy, but it's a different kind of high wire act, right? Because you don't have studio money behind you,
that's right, but
or that kind of oversight. But all the decisions and all the risks are really on your shoulders.
Well, you may have the oversight. If you look at grant guidelines these days, that's plenty of oversight, and it's getting far worse than it ever was when I started out. The politics of applying for a grant really often distorts a project, and you do have to find a way to do it financially, find a way to survive. In my case, I had a dual career, which was print journalism. Now, I'm grateful that I was in film, because print journalism has all but disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the subjects of a film I've been 5 years in production on, which is grossly underfunded. It's a portrait of a avant-garde journalist in the 60s and 70s, and we're hoping to finish it sometime next year. It's called License to Tell. It's a portrait of the very best of the Playboy interviewers.
Yeah.
Named Ken Kelly. But I pursued a print career as a way of survival. Articles, books, a lot of ghostwriting of popular books, and it gradually turned out that that I could do the research for a documentary by being a print journalist. I could interview people, write an article, and then if that article held water, in other words, if it made sense as a story, the subjects would have an understanding that I wasn't out to cut their throats, might go along with converting that whole idea, recreating that idea as a documentary film. And I did this a couple of times. And it was a cheap way to do the research, to prepare for a documentary. And then and show that there was a real coherent story there that was maybe worth telling.
Right. Yeah. And so how did you then, I mean, you could talk about these things any way you wish, but I guess, how did you move to focus on math and the science since the 80s? What brought you there? And you can speak about any of the tangents, or you can go anywhere with that.
Well, gradually through the 70s, as I moved into documentaries, I made a film called Hookers about prostitutes. I made a film called Where the Heart Roams, which was my first feature film, completed in 1987, about romance writers, women who read and write romance. I made a film about pirates with an anthropologist in the Philippines, called People of the Current. I made a film, let's see, well, that came later. But I made a number of films about groups of people, and I realized that this was a kind of anthropology for me. and I called it first world anthropology.
Mm.
Instead of going to, well, in some cases it was remote, but in most cases it was in our own society, looking at groups in our own society. And one of the themes that emerged for me was that every group I was looking at was providing some escape from the horrors of everyday reality. In other words, the romance writers were looking for a way to escape. Prostitutes were providing escape. It turned out to be the same thing for mathematicians.
Mm.
And although I didn't know it at the time, I was simply drawn to, it was a serendipitous moment when I read an article in The Atlantic by Paul Hoffman about Paul Erdős, one of the most interesting mathematicians of the 20th century. And here was a man who had been wandering the globe for about 50 years without a home, without a job, without any kind of normal income. And he was extremely popular. He went from university to university, hosted by the faculty there, would sit around with the students and the faculty solving problems. He wasn't a reliable lecturer. He didn't really know how to butter his own bread. And he traveled with a plastic bag, all his possessions in a plastic bag. Yet he was one of the most sought after mathematicians in the world. It's not clear whether he would have been able to survive with, once the internet came along, because he would pollinate the world of mathematics with information about the other people he had just seen. Erdős lived this way for 50 years. And the article about him convinced me that a film could be made. And then we began the project in 1988. And I know you were going to ask me about my Hungarian background. Being Hungarian made it easier to communicate with him. And that's really the only advantage. And, you know, I was able to make connections so I could film in Hungary and Poland in the late 1980s. It was 89, which things were really interesting there then.
Yeah,
it was the end of the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
At that period. It was a fascinating time, but we were able to go there with a 16mm cameraman and follow Erdős around in both of those countries, and finish that film in 1993. No one really encouraged me. I got a small grant from the National Science Foundation. The rest of it was financed, and a couple of other small donors. The rest of it was financed by Visa, MasterCard. And you know, it seemed hopeless. No one thought a film of this type would have any appeal. And it's kind of supported me since it was released in 1993.
No kidding.
Constant interest, and it introduced me to a world of mathematicians because he knew so many people. He was so popular. A film about him brought other mathematicians to me, and I was diverted into that area by that film with no plan, really. It's just been one math film after another, and it's a wonderful niche.
And where is it? And how does it? Is it shown on mostly on college campuses? I assume it's been shown on PBS at some. So it still has a life.
The film is called N is a Number, a portrait of Paul Erdős. It has a very strong life, even in DVD, believe it or not. And as you know, DVD is dying.
Yeah.
It has a strong streaming life. Colleges show it all the time. Individuals, Amazon orders DVDs every month.
Yeah. And has the success of that helped you place other films?
Well, definitely, because this film brought me the attention that this was a fertile ground with nobody working in it. That mathematicians, there are several benefits of films about mathematicians. I'll list one. It's really great to make films about people who are smarter than you. And there's a social barrier, especially in this country, that really involves the fear of mathematics and mathematicians by the general public. So the mathematicians themselves are eager to communicate with anyone who will hear them.
Yeah.
And so I've had the good fortune to work with some of the top minds in the world who are very interested in putting out their ideas, sharing their ideas, and working with someone who is trying to translate that or communicate it and pass it on to the general public.
Yeah. Well, when I
And
was
so,
watching, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, when I was watching the film on Mirzakhani, I was just, I was fascinated on several levels. I was fascinated with her as a person. I was fascinated with her journey from the U.S. from Iran to the U.S. Her cohort of friends who were mathematicians, and how they really supported her, not necessarily jealous of her. I was bowled over by the friendships she formed in the U.S. with other mathematicians, and how kind of reverently they spoke about her, but kind of joyously. But the thing that always gets me when I watch documentaries about math and the sciences is at that level, how the math is the work. It's like the hand, almost the tactile work, but there's a lot of mind creativity going on to kind of formulate, to just think, I don't want to say out of the box, but just think fantastically about the way the universe works, and then attack that through math. I mean, I just found her and her colleagues so fascinating, and so they were so humble in their own way, and they're still performing at the highest levels. So that was really kind of moving to me.
That's a very gratifying interpretation of the film, I have to say, uh, because that's exactly what I see in the people, that they are forging and researching in areas that are completely unknown, and it takes a lot of stamina and courage to do that, because many people work in that kind of research and will get nowhere.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And most of them suspect that maybe what they're doing will not get them anywhere, and they continue to do it. And only rarely is there some kind of great breakthrough. And I made a film about a man named Yitang Zhang, who worked in obscurity. He didn't really have the best advice from his advisors when he graduated from Purdue. He got his PhD there, and worked at Subway for 7 years. All this time, he was working on an important problem that was really at the highest level. When he got an assistant professorship, assistant lectureship at the University of New Hampshire, he finished the work 8 or 9 years later and submitted it to one of the most important journals in mathematics, and was lucky enough to have people who understood it there to read it. Otherwise, it would have been tossed, because he was nobody. And they get a lot of crank. They get a lot of crank submissions of people solving important problems in their garages, and they're a waste of time, most of them. And his proof was wonderful, and the people who he was lucky enough to have the right people read it, and he is now doing research with no teaching obligations at UC Santa Barbara. But that's another Cinderella story where someone persisted despite every obstacle you can imagine.
Wow. Well, you must find it so emotionally rewarding, if not financially, to kind of find and showcase these people. And then I guess as you're making a documentary, you're sort of on your own level discovering really who they are and what they are. I mean, I know you probably going with, and I'm not trying to, you tell me, so you decide to make, let's say, a film about Maryam Mirzakhani, and you don't write a script for her, so you don't necessarily know exactly where it's going to go, but it must be incredibly rewarding once you have the product.
It was Maryam Mirzakhani's mathematics was some of the most difficult territory I've ever had to deal with, and I had tremendous help from mathematicians in creating the animation. But speaking about her and her life and her impact, I'd like to bring up something on the screen.
Oh, sure.
Your sharing is disabled.
Okay, let me just do this.
I'm going to look for something
Good, share screen.
that I'd like to share with you, because there is
Now it should be all right,
okay.
I think.
Here's a picture of Maryam.
Oh, there. Okay. Oh, yeah. We're only getting her eyes at this point.
There, how's that?
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's a picture of Maryam Mirzakhani, who finished her career at Stanford. She died of breast cancer at the age of 40.
Yeah.
And then I will share another one, which is pertinent to things that are going on today in Iran. I'm sure you're aware that there is something of a revolution going on in Iran. And here's a poster made with our film. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do see that.
This was made by the students at Sharif University. I can't tell you if it was last year or the year before, but she has had an enormous impact on the students at every level, high school, college, and this is how the film has reverberates from them, using our cover, our poster, and then they've made their own poster based on that. Sharif University is now at the center of a lot of the action in, let's see, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I see you.
Okay, I'd like to stop sharing.
Okay. No, it's funny. I just remember a piece of the film that talked about how that even the mullahs had to sort of embraced her, even though, you know, she's not wearing any headgear or anything, that she was kind of, she was so big, and they were so proud of her that she's one of the few people that the government would allow to be showcased in this way. Have I got that right? Or
yes, I think that is the case. There we go.
There you are.
Okay. So yes, it's an amazing story, and her impact on Iran and the situation there, considering the fact that she was extremely careful not to endorse any political group or any change. Just her existence made a statement and is making a difference now.
Well, it was fascinating. So kind of a little bit of a segue, but so how do you promote her and the other films at this point?
How do I promote them?
Promote them. In other words, who's seeing the film on Mirzakhani? And you know.
Maryam Mirzakhani, Secrets of the Surface is the name of the film, by the way. And the let's see, I should maybe share the website, although it's just.
You have a great website, so I would encourage anybody. All they have to do is Google Zala Films, and they can see everything there.
Zala Films, ZALAFilms.com.
Yes.
Anyhow, the film is being Secrets of the Surface is currently on public television stations in the U.S. for another 2 or 3 years via APT, American Public Television, syndication, and it has been on since I think March. Will continue to appear. APT is a syndication service, and so it doesn't. There's no national schedule, but it has been on the World Channel through PBS.
I've not seen it yet. I mean, I've not seen it on PBS yet. I did, you know, buy it on Vimeo. So
Vimeo has been a great conduit.
Has it? Okay, great.
In not just for this film, but for all of the films. I've got 25 titles on Vimeo, and it's a second life for a lot of films. And I can't say enough about it. And hopefully, some giant organization doesn't buy them up and change everything soon. But currently, it's becoming an important part of my distribution.
Mhm.
I still have thousands of DVDs in the basement for different films, and that has slowed down. That used to be the main avenue for distributing, particularly with the institutional and library purchases, which are a different rate from individual.
Mhm.
And then some foreign television and some U.S. television, and you cobble it together. And
Yeah. And
I
are you yourself cobbling all this together, or do you have an outside business partner or something, or it's pretty much you?
I am handling it all. Almost everything I know about distribution, everything I practice, I learned from a wonderful filmmaker named Les Blank. I don't know if you're familiar with that name.
No, I keep
BL.
thinking of Mel Blanc, but no, Les
Oh,
Blanc, I don't know.
no. Les Blank was a pioneer of documenting folk music in the South. He lived in
Oh,
Berkeley, California. Wonderful, wonderful films going back to the 60s. He's made 20, 30 films, and he's there are some quite well-known films. And
mhm.
without him, a lot of these rural musicians, particularly Black and Cajun and various folk traditions, would not be known today. And Les survived by running around the country showing his films at theaters. He would he made one film called "Garlic is as Good as 10 Mothers" about garlic, and he would cook, and he would use garlic at the theater. He also made T-shirts and postcards like crazy, and he would sit there at the table outside the theater selling his T-shirts and postcards and VHS tapes and then DVDs, but he never let anybody else have any rights. And my own experience with large distributors, in some cases, I have uh, gone with a larger distributor, which is every filmmaker wants to find a distributor.
Mhm.
And I got one of the best with Where the Heart Roams, New Yorker Films, very prestigious. Their catalog was full of superstars from Europe,
Mhm.
Bergman, Godard, all kinds of people.
Yeah.
I was in great company. Well, I got an advance, and that was it. And that was the end of story. Uh,
And
yeah,
how long ago was that? Was that recent?
1988.
Oh, so it's a while ago. Wow.
Yeah, and that was it. And it's not worth it. I think it's best to hold all the rights you can. Um, you can share through Vimeo, you can share through Amazon. Uh, if This is my advice to young filmmakers, hold on to your property.
I was going to ask you if you had any advice for young filmmakers or documentarians per se.
And this is something that Les Blank practiced, and he made it. The more product you put out, the more significant it is that one of them will bring in $5 this month because you've got a lot out there. So it's your social security in a way,
Yeah.
if you're able to survive in this business.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have built up this mostly in the last 30 years mathematical catalog, and it continues to support me.
Yeah. Did you want to talk a little about your next project? I know you're working on the journeys of Black mathematicians, or is
Well,
there,
it
uh-oh,
is.
should I not have brought it up?
No, you should. You should bring it up. Unfortunately, next project is a terrifying word to me. I have 7 unfinished films at this point.
7.
And
Wow.
Journeys of Black Mathematicians is the biggest juggernaut. I hope it's not a Titanic. It's a 4-year project involving stories. So far, we've interviewed 50 people and gone to several events, and COVID has put restrictions on the first 2 years of shooting because we weren't able to show people interacting
Mm.
in groups. The classrooms, any classroom scene we shot in the last through June perhaps was always everybody was masked. But now that's loosening up, and I just returned from a 2-week shoot in Baltimore, Washington, at Howard University and Morgan State in Baltimore. It's a fantastic project. There are incredible stories of people. particularly the older people who navigated stellar mathematical careers invisibly.
Mhm.
Nobody cared about Black mathematicians. They functioned either as professors, as employees of NSA, of NASA, of the National Bureau of Statistics, all these organizations, government organizations, as really workhorse mathematicians. But their stories, their educational stories, and you know, the things that happen to them are all fantastic. I'm learning a lot, and so I think I look forward to putting this out there. We have a few clips on the website, Journeys of Black Mathematicians. Again, this is a project I've had the good fortune to be supported on many of these things in the last 20 years by the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute, Berkeley, which is an independent research facility that has a strong interest in outreach to the public. And my projects, my joint projects with them are all in that category of outreach, making the public aware of what mathematics is, what mathematicians do.
And when do you think this will be out? On Black?
We are scheduled for
Okay.
1 hour of it, January 2024.
Oh, okay, not too far.
And another hour, the second hour in January 2025. But we'll continue to put things up on the website, little clips as we move along.
So is it kind of a series then? You said the first.
It is the shape is somewhat loose still.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be at least 2 1-hour pieces as we work in the younger people and see what their challenges are in finding a career in mathematics, which there, as you might know, or maybe not, there are very few Black mathematicians compared to other people in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a constant challenge. And so how to encourage Latino and Black students and Native Americans to pursue careers in mathematics and science is a big, big subject. And you know, I'd like to mention another film that was extremely gratifying, something called Navajo Math Circles that I did a few years ago, where a group of professional mathematicians went to the Navajo reservation and started a extracurricular program for students. Of course, parents had to bring them in, and these involved long drives. And there was that commitment, but it was free. And these students most of them are now in universities.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it was a fantastic project. Plus, you know, you can't beat the landscape on a project like that.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see that and the one of the Black Mathematicians on PBS in the next few years, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I know we will eventually, but you know, sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, our time is about up. I keep getting messages from Zoom. I hope they didn't appear on the screen. That our time.
No, I don't see them. So
oh, good. I saw it.
Probably good.
It's going to end. So, we got maybe a minute? Is there anything else you'd like to add? It's been a delight speaking to you. I would encourage anybody to go to your website and see what you're doing, because we covered a little bit, but there's so much more. Obviously,
there is a lot more, and it's a good thing that we didn't get into the subject of what a young filmmaker should do these days, because if I go on about that, I might have them jumping out windows.
Yeah. Well, if you want to do that, maybe we can do another talk sometime.
Well, that would be a subject, but it might cause somebody to throw me out a window too.
All right. Well, we don't want that. We don't want that. So, George, it's been a delight speaking with you, and you know, we'll sign off, and you can say goodbye or whatever you want to say to the folks who are going to check out your website now.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'll just give the link, www.zalafilms.com, ZALAfilms.com.
Yeah, it comes right up. I just did Zala, came right up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Take care.
Bye-bye.